they'll have to use their own password and everything to be able to.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. My name is Jay Tiefenbrunn and I am very pleased to be your Director of Music Ministries. I'd like to invite you to join in singing this morning as we open our annual congregational meeting with number 1017, Building a New Way in the Turquoise Hymnal. Number 1017, I will line out the verses if you're familiar so you can sing from your heart. Please rise in body or in spirit as you're so moved and join in the singing. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. Feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We're working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free of hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. 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 Starry love that is the sea. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. 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 Without these we'll surely die. Peace and freedom is our cry. Good morning. Please take a moment to greet each other.
Good morning. This congregational meeting is brought to you by Change and a word from our sponsor.
Oh, shoot.
As my high school teacher, Miss Judy Coleman, used to say, we must adjust to changing times and still hold to unchanging principles.
So what if our numbers would be small? So have they ever been. But surely quantity is no more a criterion of value in the summer of 1963 than it has been in all of our history.
one gets through life alone. We have to look out for each other and lift each other up.
Change will not come if we wait for some other person or if we wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
We are the ones.
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 We are the ones. We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
We are the ones.
From the power of our memory and our history, with our high hopes for the days that lie ahead, we gather to craft that destiny we share with one another. We gather with faith in this practice of democracy. We gather with hearts and minds open to the wisdom of every voice among us. In our gathering, may we dream and design a bold future. May we bring our best selves to this service, and may we dream these dreams and do this work with love. May it be so.
So would people raise their hand if you're a member, please? A quorum, we're voting for a quorum. Oh. Is that better? We need to have at least 70. All righty. Under the bylaws, a quorum for membership meetings is a minimum of 70 members. We have well over 70 members present. Therefore, this meeting is called to order. We'd like to sing the children to their activities.
Please join me in singing the children with the children's blessing on the inside back cover of your gray hymnal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kim Hackett, and I'm president of our congregation and will be presiding over this annual congregational meeting. Our bylaws require a 10-day notice for a general meeting, and this requirement was met. As stated per bylaws, the privilege of voting at congregational meetings shall be open to all individuals who have been members for at least 90 days prior to the date of this meeting, at which a vote is to be taken. We remind you that non-members shall not be allowed to vote. I would also like to introduce our parliamentarian, Phyllis Slaughter. She will help us with meeting procedures and rules of orders as needed. Our board secretary, Melinda Fish, would like to present the minutes of the January 2019 mid-year congregational meeting. These minutes have been posted in the meeting notification packet on May 31st for your review. Are there any correction to the minutes? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes of June 2018 Congregational Annual Meeting? No, I'm saying it wrong. January 19th Mid-Year Congregational Meeting, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are approved unanimously. All righty. Would all board members please rise as I call your name? Dan Hiller, Bob Day, Sharon Reese, Melinda Fish, Hal Potts, Steve Jones, Steve Harash, Chelsea Henry, Phyllis Slaughter, Scott Weaver, I said it wrong, Jeff Stein, Rachel Roberts. Would you please join me in acknowledging your board of directors? The board has been functioning well this year. We spent a lot of time discussing and learning about effective governance models. We have become clearer about understanding what is board work and what is micromanaging to the point of being ineffective. We have a wonderful church staff with incredible skills and dedication. I'd like to say thanks to everyone's commitment to such a high standard. Gail, Marguerite, Mary, Sherry, Jay, Jonah, Denise, Kendra, Karina, Holland, and Tony, we appreciate you and thank you. Reverend Gail's retirement, our building campus plans, and building a new governance structure. We have formed a task force, Building for Our Future, BFF, for building plans, and will continue on with a vote concerning the lead minister transition team recommendations. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to serve. Growing with this community has been a great joy in my life, and I look. Now, Gail will recognize our retiring elected leaders.
Before our vote for incoming elected leaders, we would hear from the board, Jeff Stein and Bob Day. Would you please stand up so we could thank you? Yeah. So Bob did several terms of service to the MAC, so he is retiring for a few years and maybe forever. We'll see. He's like, I'll find something to do. And Jeff, of course, was our past president, and he has been passing on and really coaching Kim this year. And I want to thank both of you so much for your service. Now, I'm going to name everyone else and just remain standing. We'll hold our applause to the end of that. One person's retiring from the trust, the endowment trust. That's Allison Thompson. Could you please stand, Allison? Yeah, there, and here she is, because she's up on the next slate. So remember that face. Nominating, we have two people who have finished their term of service, Margie May and David Lewis. Did I see? Yes, there's David, thank you. Lead Ministry Advisory Committee, Mike Bowles and Jessica Stein, who I personally am indebted to. And the Safe Congregation Panel, Doug Pasto-Crosby and Tanya Surowitz. There's Tanya and Doug. Thank you very much for your terms of service.
The nominating committee, I'd like to welcome Pat Lynch.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce first our nominating committee members from this year. If you'd please stand. Carol Koppel, David Lewis, Valerie Martin, Chaz Sisk, and Susan Warner. All right. We're excited to share our proposed slate of candidates for July. You've really been great about stepping up, and that is wonderful. Before we do that, we want to thank our retiring committee chairs for their good work. So when I say your name, please stand, and we'll hold the applause till the end. Susan Johnston for Beloved Community, Chaz Sisk for CRE, Lynn Harris and Cindy Wood for Fellowship, David Orth for Finance, Kathy Gonski and Vicki Jones for Fundraising, Candy Toller and Bob Snook for Stewardship, Melanie Bresnan for the 2030s Group, Lynn Egan for Personnel, Maya Johnson for the YAC, and Margie May for nominating. So thank you very much for your hard work this year. So for context, we have 35 elected positions each year that need to be filled, and some are 2-year terms and some are 3-year terms. So they don't all need to be filled every year. In addition to that, we have the non-elected committees, and there are 20 committees, most with co-chairs. And then of that, there are subcommittees that have huge jobs and need leadership. And those are the Herb Fair, Room in the Inn, the auction. There's a lot of committees that are subcommittees that have a lot of responsibility. So every year, we have more than 80 leadership positions that need to be in place. So people have volunteered for all but a handful of these, and some of these we kind of found out in the last month or so. So towards the end of the meeting, we're really going to be asking for your help in coming up with some nominees. But first, we have this year's proposed nominations for the board. And that includes Doug Pasto-Crosby for Vice President. Please stand. Allison Thompson for Resource and Development Chair. And for second terms, they've agreed to serve second terms, are Chelsea Henry for Ministerial Chair and Melinda Fish for Secretary. Okay, and so we'll be voting on those in just a few minutes. Thank you. Okay, and then for our other elected positions for the trust, we have Candy Toller. For nominating, we have Catherine Wilkening and Kathy Hiller. And please just stand in case somebody doesn't know who you are. Thank you. And for the Committee on Ministry, we have Josh Johnson and Elizabeth Lyserson. For the Safe Congregation panel, we have Kathy Sewell and Mary Shelton. Okay, so those are the nominees that we'll be voting on in just a few minutes. And I'd also like to introduce some new committee chairs for July. For CRE, we have Jessica Young and Eileen Finnan. For Finance, we have Vanessa Hall. If you could please stand if you're here. Fundraising, Jeannie Hammond. For the 20 and 30s group, we have Colin Garrett. And for the YAC, we have River Plummer. And that's a youth advisory committee for anyone who doesn't know. So thank you all so much for stepping up for these positions. And now we really need your ideas to fill some positions that are open for the coming year, for starting July. For fellowship, this committee puts on the social events that we have at our church, and it's part of the program council. And Cindy and Lynn are stepping down from leadership, but are eager to support the new chairs. They have well-organized systems in place, and they have the names of many volunteers that support them regularly. So what they need are, people who can organize, call meetings and keep things running, and they're happy to mentor the new chairs. We also need your suggestions for personnel. The board delegates to the personnel committee the duty of recruiting and hiring the paid staff, and this is done in conjunction with the lead minister and other appropriate staff members. And personnel also maintains and updates the policies and procedures and the personnel manual. And Lynn has served in this position for many years, and she's very well organized, and she can train the new co-chairs. And this position is part of the Resource and Development Council. And then thirdly, we need stewardship co-chairs. As you know, the stewardship chair gathers a team of dedicated workers to remind members and friends that stewardship is more than just making a financial pledge to the church, and that it's a year-round endeavor. And so after a couple of years of great leadership on this committee, we're looking for 2 new co-chairs. And this is a robust committee with many roles filled, but we need new leaders who can really do a great job communicating with the team to keep things moving, as the previous chairs have done. And this committee is also part of the Resource and Development Council. So there's so many people that we don't know. We really need your help. Please write your ideas on the yellow slips of paper. We're hoping we'll get some really good ideas today. You can nominate yourself if you'd like, and we'll collect them at the exits after the meeting. We have some high dollar signs that you can look for with baskets on your way out. All right, that would be a great help. Okay, and so then now we're going to ask you to vote on the slate of elected leaders, and these 2 slides will summarize them for you. For the board, we have Doug Pastor-Crosby for vice president, Alice Thompson for resource and development, Chelsea Henry for the 2nd term as ministerial chair, and Melinda Fish for the 2nd term as secretary. And then for the elected committees, we have Candy Toller for the trust, Catherine Wilkening and Kathy Hiller for the nominating, Kathy Sewell and Mary Shelton for the Safe Congregation panel, and Josh Johnson and Elizabeth Lyserson for the Committee on Ministry. And I'll turn it.
The nominating committee proposes this slate for a congregational vote. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. One. Any abstentions? No. All approve unanimously. Thank you. Now, Reverend Gale will install our newly elected positions.
Can you see that over my head here? This is a responsive reading. I would like everyone to stand who was just elected to a position, and I would like everyone else to look at the installation. The congregation has something to say about halfway in. Okay, religious leadership knows the abiding presence of a sustaining and transforming love at the heart of life. Would everyone else join in? It testifies that his love beyond all names, undergirds joy, asks for justice, deserves the status quo, and his freedom. Religious leaders point to the grace at work in life, especially in the places of suffering and the places of creativity. They speak and act prophetically, pointing us in reverence towards what we hold sacred. They lead congregations and communities to be active witnesses in the world to the abiding presence of love. Do the members of the board of directors and nominations committee who will be elected to be the leaders of our church promise to fulfill the responsibilities of your position with a sense of trustworthiness, graciousness, dependability, Thank you all for your service.
Now I would like to introduce Steve Jones, our church treasurer, and Bob Day, Resource and Development Chair, to report on our financial budget.
I'm Bob Day. I'm the outgoing Resource and Development Council Chair, as you've heard. Steve is going to present the budget because he put together the spreadsheet. I wanted to thank you for those of you who attended our community conversations about the budget. And it was very helpful in making decisions with the board. And at the Resource and Development Council meeting yesterday, someone suggested that we should have those before the stewardship campaign instead of after the stewardship campaign. So we're going to look at that for next year. Thank you for all of your pledges, for paying your pledges. If you haven't finished paying your pledge, we could use a little help. Cash flow is kind of short this month because this year, for a change, we put all the prepaid pledges into a restricted account so we wouldn't spend them before they were in their appropriate year. Last year we didn't do that. Last several years we didn't do that. So anyway, cash flow is important. And here's Steve.
I'm going to just hit the highlights of the budget. As you know, we had a stewardship goal of $650,000 in pledges. Unfortunately, we didn't make that, but we did come really close to $600,000. So when putting together the budget, we really wanted to give the staff a big raise. We wanted to increase, the spending on our programs. And one of the things we really wanted to do was to hire a new staff person who would be dedicated to financial matters. Because we didn't get all the pledges we wanted, we ended up, having to cut back some things. So highlights is we're giving the staff a 4% increase on average. There's also a significantly larger increase to Marguerite because she became certified this year. Unfortunately, to be able to do that, we had to cut a few things. So, as you know, in the budget conversations, we talked about some things that we could cut. One were UUA dues. One was Wednesday night dinners, which we end up spending more money than we bring in every week. Another was programs. Another was reserves. So, if you look at the budget or you see the budget, we ended up cutting. We solved the Wednesday night dinner problem, or at least John Harris solved the Wednesday night dinner problem by coming up with a plan that will hopefully break even. So Wednesday night dinners still be happening, maybe not as frequently, maybe at a higher cost. We ended up having to cut all of our payments to ourselves. As you remember, we have a loan from ourselves for operating reserves and capital reserves, and we've been paying that back to ourselves every month. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that. So we've cut back the payments to ourselves on the loan. We've also cut back some money that we've been putting aside for sabbatical and for computer hardware. We completely eliminated the intern stipend that we were saving for. We also, unfortunately, had to cut back our programs, not quite as much as we thought, but we ended up cutting everybody across the board for the amount that they asked for by about somewhere between 13 and 15%. So everybody got what they wanted, with the exception of, again, like about 13%. Not a lot, but a little bit of a cut there. The big cut was really in our UUA dues. In the past, we paid $22,000 each fiscal year, which was not really our fair share. Our fair share is somewhere in the range of $34,000, $35,000 a year. In order to be able to do what we want to do and not cut back our programs as much and be able to give the staff those raises, we cut our dues to $12,000. So it's unfortunate. I hope that we'll be able to get back to where we want to be in the future, but we have to have a balanced budget. So Our goal is that one, we're hopeful that we'll get a lot of new pledges during the year. We're hopeful that we'll get all of the other income we're hoping for and that we budgeted for. And one other note I'll make is that we had a pretty significant increase unexpected increase in our bookkeeping cost. So you can see that in our budget went from like 28,000 to 41,000. We're in the process right now of interviewing new bookkeepers. So we're also looking to hire potentially a payroll service. So our goal for this year is to try to get things back on an even keel with bookkeeping and payroll and all of the membership data. We've done a lot of changes this year. But I think that, in general, we've been disappointed with our new bookkeeper, so we've decided we're going to look elsewhere. We're most likely going to hire a firm that has a CPA as its CEO. One other thing I'll note, we added a few things. We did add a line item for background checks. We've updated some professional expense to a formula. We also cut back, I said we cut back the UUA, but we also cut back our gifts to the Mountain and to the UUSC. Those were small amounts, but we had to make some cuts to be able to balance everything. Can't think of anything else. Anybody got questions about? Yes?
Hi, I just want to say something for the record. I know finances are really tight right now, but when we're looking ahead to the future, I know we really care about fair payment to our staff, and the UUA has guidelines for many of the positions. I don't believe UUA has guidelines for communication director, for people with technology skills. And I just wanted to say that since I've been here for 15 years, we've expanded to have this incredibly active Facebook site. We've got the flat screen. We have live streaming of our services. And in this era when we're trying to grow our congregation and to get enough money to have a new building and to build it, what we need is communication to the outside world to get new people in. So I just really feel that since there are no guidelines for communication, I feel like our person in that position has been in a really rough situation. The salary is very low for the high-tech skills that she has. And if we were to try to replace Sherry, we would require several people with higher skills. We have technology companies coming in here with demanding people with skills. And if there's anything that we can do in the future to make her salary commensurate with other people in the congregation and people in her field, because she's added so much to our outreach to the world and our visibility. I want to put that in the record.
Hear, hear.
Okay, are we ready to approve the budget?
All righty. Our church treasurer and R&D chair proposed this budget for congregational vote. Any more discussion? Thank you, Ann. All in favor, please raise your hand. Can my counters be? All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? All approved. Wait, one abstention. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Anybody? Thank you, guys. 3.
I'm going to talk about the mortgage. One other thing I wanted to add is that one of the things we're going to be looking at this year is a way to hopefully restore what we're paying to the UUA. And we're sitting on a campus that's worth about $3 million, and we owe on our mortgage $130,000 for about 3 years. We're paying close to $4,000 a month in a mortgage payment. So we're going to look at potentially refinancing that loan for a longer period. That would push it out another 7 years, because the most we can go is 10 years probably. And in the same token, pull another $100,000 or so out of, or leverage that out of our property. So we would probably increase the loan to $230,000. In doing so, we'll probably lower our mortgage payment by about $1,000 a month. So hopefully that $1,000 could then go to restore our UUA dues, the amount we're putting in. In addition, we would use that $100,000 to shore up our operating and capital reserves, which our operating reserves right now are sitting really low. During this year, we've had to use $19,000 of our reserves to be able to stay above zero in our checking account. I mean, there've been a couple of times when, in order to make payroll, we've had to borrow money from ourselves, from our reserves, and we're not able right now to pay that money back. So we've used $19,000 of our reserves. Our reserves are down to about $13,000. Not a lot. That doesn't mean we don't have money. We have a lot of money in our restricted account. It's just not targeted for operating reserves. So we could utilize it if we need it, but our preference would be to have a much larger balance in our operating reserves. So we'll be looking at that this year, and of course, if that happens, you'll be asked to vote on it because the bylaws require it. So,
thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
So, thank you. So the vote was all approved. I just wanted to get those words. Thank you so much for all you guys' hard work throughout the year. I'd like to introduce Jessica Moore-Lucas and Roddy Biggs from the Social Justice Committee.
So over the course of the past few months, the Social Justice Committee has been looking at what it means to be a welcoming congregation. The UUA has recently done some shifting, which Jessica's going to talk about a little bit more. But what's most important right now is when we're thinking about change and moving forward, what do we want our congregation to look like for the outside community? What's important to us? And what I hope would be important to us, seeing that it's in our UU principles, is to value every single person and all identities that come into our doors. So Jessica's going to tell you more about what that looks like, and then we'll put it to a vote. Oh, and I just broke it. There we are.
All right, so the old process, just for those of you who remember, it started in about 1990. The next slide will kind of show how different congregations have become welcoming congregations and have renewed the welcoming congregation. Basically, the old process, every 5 years, a special committee had to be convened and had to work through this book or its successors. It was a process. There were surveys, there were classes, it was a whole big deal thing. Now, because it was a whole big deal thing, not everybody did the renewal every 5 years. We've renewed once or twice over the years, but it's been more than 5 years since our last renewal. The new process is this. We do these 5 things every single year. Yeah, I'll read them. So first, we become a welcoming congregation. And part of why we're here today is because it's been a while since our last renewal, we just want to affirm as a congregation our commitment to welcoming LGBTQ individuals. So the second is welcoming worship services. Back in March, we did our Transgender Day of Visibility service, which was amazing. I recommend if you were not here, go back and watch that on the YouTube channel. It was incredible. Observing welcoming days of observance. You may have noticed that we have flags, and we have flags in the social area. One of the things the Social Justice Committee has done to do this, we bought all the identity flags. We're super excited about this. And so we've hung them this month in honor of Pride. We'll see them at other times of the year too. And observing those, you'll also notice newsletter articles and social media posts about different days throughout the year. The next is to do a welcoming congregation module. These are religious education modules to help us grow and learn about how we can better offer welcome to people of various identities. We've helped the Trans Affirming Collective purchase a curriculum about trans inclusion in congregations. Watch this space, because we're going to be rolling it out and offering it to anybody who's interested in the coming church year. And then finally, supporting a welcoming project. What's exciting about this? All these things, we already do them. Because supporting a welcoming project, this month's Share the Plate partner, Trans Affirming Collective. We have done the Oasis Center. We have done all kinds of, when we participate in the Nashville Cares AIDS Walk, that's a welcoming project. So these are things we are already doing, which is rad. Did I break it? All right, how do I get to the next slide? F? There we go. So this is basically, if you look at this, these are congregations becoming welcoming congregations. You'll notice there are little tiny purple bars of people renewing and big blue bars of people doing it for the first time. People weren't renewing. This is why they've changed the process. So what we are asking that we vote to affirm our commitment to our UU values and vote to continue and renew our commitment to being a welcoming congregation.
Thank you, guys. Any discussion? Be careful.
While I kill Roddy, I'm sorry.
Voters, all in favor, please raise your hand. All righty. All opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Okay. Passed unanimously. Thank you, guys. And now I would like to introduce Allison Thompson from the Endowment Trust. Thank you, Allison.
I want to first recognize and thank my fellow trustees, Linda DeRico, Lori Samuels, Mark Stash, and Vicki Tatarin. It's been a good group to work together this year. The Endowment Trust receives donations and bequests made to the church at death or made to honor someone living or memorialize someone who has died. This money is set aside and invested for the long-term benefit of the church. It can be used for an emergency need, and it helps to ensure the long-term financial stability of the church. The church makes grants from the trust each year to projects that benefit the church or support the church's work in the community. As of April 30th, we had $623,302 in church assets. In the 2018 to 19 church year, we received $6,920 in contributions and donations given by 13 people. In terms of investments, our goal is to maintain a 50-50 balance between stocks and bonds to sort of help us ride out the ups and downs of the market. The Legacy Circle is a group of people who have made a commitment to make a gift to the church at death. We're always looking for new members and hope that you will consider joining the Legacy Circle. If you have any questions about it, please talk to any of the trustees. Our grants for 2019 under the trust bylaws, the trust gives 5% of the average trust value over the last 13 quarters. That total amount this year was $22,619. 40% of that amount is going to be added to our capital reserves. That's $9,048 for capital reserves, and 60% is distributed in grants. So $13,571 is going out in grants. The entire amount available for grants this year is being awarded to the Building Our Future Task Force for their the capital consulting grant that they put in. And this will provide funds to hire a capital campaign consultant to work with us to establish capital campaign goals and a process as we move forward with plans to raise money for a new church building. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Now I'd like to introduce Jessica Himmelrich from the Lead Minister Transition Team.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So I'm here to give you an update. This team presented their response to the board in the month of May. If you recall, I was here in January for the mid-meeting congregation when the board had drafted the charge to the Lead Minister Transition Committee. So the charge was to make the recommendations for the short, midterm, and long-term plans for staffing leading up to the June 2020 retirement of Reverend Gale. So our recommendation to the response, we did a lot of research. Thank you again for your attendance in the community conversations. Our recommendation for this team is that we, as a congregation, hire what we call a developmental minister, not a called minister or an interim minister, immediately following the retirement of Reverend Gale Seavey in June of 2020. So let's talk a little bit about what a developmental minister is. It's specific to the UUA. For congregations with targeted goals, the UUA Developmental Minister Program offers a new approach. So this has been arised within the last 6 to 8 years in the UUA. The program helps congregations set goals, and then the UUA works with us directly to match with us a minister whose skills can help achieve them. So while the program is still evolving, there is a subset of developmental ministers that are available to hire during the called minister process. So that's an annual event through the UUA. It happens and begins in about January of each year, and then it takes about a 6-month hiring process. The developmental ministers are seasoned, experienced ministers. So this is a difference than an interim minister. So these are ministers that were in called positions previously, don't want to take on another called position necessarily, and, so to speak, market their skill sets to come into a congregation for a limited period of time to help a congregation with specific goals. So the decision to hire a developmental minister really allows for a couple of things. It's a new leader that's called for a predetermined amount of time that can aid in that transitional phase when a retiring minister that's been with your church for a period of time leaves the church. This kind of allows a fresh perspective, right? We all have those seated opinions that can be like, well, Gail didn't do it that way. So before we call in a different called minister, it gives us a breath of fresh air to work with someone on specific goals before we hire another called minister to our congregation. It provides a sense of stability for that transitional period. So we know that they're going to be here for a dedicated period of time and they're invested in our congregation. It's not someone that's just going to be in and out or we won't see. This will be a face of our congregation and they're here to invest with us. It provides kind of that sense of hope for our congregation and it's an investment in our community. I think that's the most important part. So the recommendation from this committee is that the developmental minister would be hired for a 3-year commitment to our congregation with an option for 2 additional years based on the progress of their goals. And specifically, we want to look at these top 3 goals that the developmental minister would focus on. So again, we would be working with a UUA representative to find someone that has skill set in these 3 areas. 1 was to help work through our building project and capital campaign. What if we found someone that had worked on building a new UU church before? So they knew the process, they knew best practices to work with an architect and to help with our capital campaign consultants. That would be phenomenal. 2, we want to look at the governance changes. So Kim had mentioned that the board had been working through that. We want someone that's going to shoulder that weight, right? Work side by side with us and have an expertise in that. What's best for our community? And then 3, the church vision. So reshaping, what is it that we have that we really love about us, and how can we put that back out into the community to really be the voice of the UU Church here in Nashville? So it's important to know that the developmental minister is a board-hired position. A task force would be assembled by the board, usually consisting of 1 or 2 board members and then 3 or 4 congregation members. The task force works closely with the UUA transitions team to review all